If you remain in my word, Jesus says in our gospel today, you will truly be my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Now that sounds like a lovely thought. The truth will set you free. But the men and women who were listening to him teach that weren't really big fans of what he had to say. Maybe because they just didn't like Jesus, maybe because they didn't really understand what he was saying, or maybe because they just forgot for a moment. They were being a bit forgetful. The Jewish people that Jesus is talking to in the gospel hear what he had to say and then boldly stand up and claim, "We are descendants of Abraham and have never been enslaved to anyone." An interesting response. He hadn't been talking about slavery per se, just freedom. But that was their comeback. And while it had some truth to it, it was also a bit off. I mean, their generation had not been slaves, controlled a bit by the Roman Empire perhaps, but not enslaved. So maybe it was a claim of pride, maybe it was a claim of ignorance, who knows? But whatever the reason might be, their claim does seem to be a bit short-sighted, not getting into the whole story and getting it quite right. And why was that? Well, because while that particular group of Jewish people had not been personally enslaved, a huge and critical aspect of Jewish religious and cultural history is based precisely on that very thing. The Hebrews in Egypt being enslaved to Pharaoh, the plagues from God, Moses leading them out of their servitude, freedom in the promised land. It was a big deal, something that Jews all over the world still celebrate every year at Passover. So to just flippantly say, we've never been enslaved before, it might just be a bit forgetful. And being forgetful about history is the last thing we want to do. As the 19th century philosopher and occasionally Catholic-ish thinker George Santayana put it in his pretty famous quote, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And repeating something like slavery and oppression of the ancient Jewish people, it's definitely not something that we want to do. It's not just those ancient Jews who need to be careful about remembering their past, though. It's us too. It's a big part of the reason why in less than a week we will enter an extra special and sacred time in our calendar, Holy Week, and those holy days of the Triduum that are housed within it. It's part of this whole liturgical calendar that we go through on a yearly basis. Ordinary time, Advent, Christmas, Ordinary time, Lent, Triduum, Easter, and repeat. We go around and around in this big annual circle, this cycle that we pass through each and every year. And the reason we do it is so that we don't forget, so that the stories of the big feasts and the people and the moments that have been so critical to who we are and what we're all about never have the chance to be forgotten. We don't want to be forgetful, so we follow this cycle. And as we enter Holy Week, it's time once again to be reminded of what happened to Jesus, of the incredible sacrifice he made, of God's love, and of our salvation. But really, even more than just passing these days by on the calendar and saying, yep, that was Holy Week, or all right, we got through Lent again, we should actually take this time and do our best to reflect on the story of this week ahead, to truly and actively remember the meaning of these days, of each of these moments, to certainly not be forgetful, not missing out on the incredible meaning of our Christian past, but also letting those stories influence us right now and in whatever future might lie ahead.